your trust had so much more for you. I'm hating you. Wish I didn't feel so much and I could just get bored of you. I'm craving you. I wonder if you're thinking about me the way I think of you. I'm hating you. Cause boy, you don't know what you done to me. You put a spell on me. I'm craving you. Wish I didn't feel so much and I could just get.
Hi everybody, it's nice to see you. I'm so happy. This is Sarah Puckett, back by definite high demand. Her first call went over. I'm missing all my metaphors today for some reason, and I have not been drinking yet. But Sarah's back to talk everything dual and duet narration. And I know we all have tons of questions about this subject, and Sarah is the queen. And so basically, what we're going to do this a little bit differently this time. Sarah's going to introduce herself a tiny bit and give a little background of the basics, but really this is going to be a lot of questions and answers. So I'd really like, because there's so many people, I can't see everyone on the screen. It would be great if you can put in the chat box if you have a question, and then I'll look through the chats when we have a break and time for Sarah to answer questions, and I'll call on you. Please be aware we're recording this, and it might be put on the playlist. So if you would rather not be called on and you want me to just read the question, because if you're called on and you talk, you'll be on the recording. So just in case, I mean, I've had my Zoom calls where I was horrified when I found out people posted my picture everywhere. Just in case you're sitting there in your pajamas or something, all you put on before your question is, in big caps, read. And then I won't call on you and embarrass you. I'll ask Sarah the question. But otherwise, I'll let you ask Sarah. Okay, Sarah, over to you. I'll be letting people are joining as we speak, so I'll be letting people join as you talk. But if you can give us a little background and a little bit of the basics about dual and duet narration.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Puckett, clearly. I own Pink Flamingo Productions. I've been a narrator for about 4 years. I do a lot of dual, and I've recently started doing quite a bit of duet. So I have some good knowledge on both. Like Daniela said, I'm going to let you guys do a lot of questions because I really want to be able to answer what it is you guys are curious about. But I'm going to go ahead and give you like a really quick rundown of each. So for those of you that don't know, dual is where you're narrating your point of view. So the female narrates the whole entire chapter of the female point of view, the male or another female, however it goes, narrates their whole chapter. Your dialogue, their dialogue, guy dialogue, female dialogue, all of it. So those duet is where you guys do specific characters. So you have your character, the guy has his. I'm just going to say girl and guy because that's just the easiest to describe it. Of course, there's also, you know, books with female and female, male and male. So, but for the sake of, you know, what we're doing, duet is where the female has all the female dialogue, the male has all the male dialogue. That's duet. I hope I said that. I don't know if I said dual. Whatever.
No, you said duet.
Okay. So when you're working in dual, man, I really just kind of want to answer questions because there's so much that goes into it. But
we can jump to the questions. I mean, if you want, because there are a ton.
You know what? Let's do that because
let's do the whole thing. Questions.
Yeah, because that way I can just answer what everybody wants to know.
Okay.
And instead of, you know, because there's so much to it. So.
I mean, I've only done one, and I'll jump off while anybody that has any questions to start off, start writing in the chat box. So basically, if I'm not right, it's kind of like having an affair guilt-free, basically. I mean, you have, and I think that might be where, from what I hear. Actually, before we get the questions, because I see, let me just do this 1 second. Rebecca, the kitten. We have to see the kitten. really quickly before we, because I know we're going to have a ton of questions.
He's actually sleeping right now, but I
Oh,
left the
okay.
door open in case he comes in.
If he
So,
comes in, hold it up and then, yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so basically, what was I saying? Guilt-free romance, but
Mhm.
along with that comes interaction with the other narrator. And I know that that was my question. Mine turned out really easy because the guy was just amazing. And but from what I hear from other people, that interaction isn't always so slick. So have you run into situations and have you learned of ways to deal with it? Like, what are the rules?
Oh, yes. Um, so when you're doing an indie project, it's a little bit easier to, I feel like it's a little bit easier to control because you're the producer or they're, well, we're just going to say you're the producer. So you're the one who is contacting that other narrator, and you're making sure that you guys share voice files. You're making sure that you guys talk about pacing and tone and characters and every single thing that you need to talk about for Dual. Duet's
So
a little bit
who
different, but
decides that you're the producer? I mean, see what I'm
that,
saying? You audition for a job.
yeah.
How does
So,
I think we're really new here. I think we're
okay.
like talking really new. I
Okay.
am.
So if you get with an author and they say, I would really like to have this project in Dual, what do you do at that point?
Yeah.
You go out and try to find a male narrator or a female narrator. Um, and the way you can do that is posting in groups, all of our narrator groups. You can say, this is the PFH rate. This is, what the book is about. I need this voice. And at that point, you're the producer. You're the one hiring out the talent. Now, obviously, your author is going to, have a say in who the narrator is. So I typically will just, before I started PFP, I would typically just post in the indie group and say, and now there's a bunch of different narrator groups, you can post them, but I would just say, this is what I need. This is the PFH rate. This is, blah, blah, blah. This is the whole shebang. This is the voice that I need. And email me if you want to, or comment or whatever. And then I would send them a script. They would send me an audition, and I would send that to the author, and the author would choose. But you are still the producer at that point because you're the one coordinating the book. You're the one that has the book, and you're bringing somebody else in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's all under your name. You've got the end of the responsibility, but the writer gets to choose the voice.
Yep.
So how do you manage quality control and communication at that point? Do you have like a welcome pack for dual narrators kind of thing?
I don't, but that's a good idea. I don't do that. I just simply talk to them. I haven't had a ton of male narrators that haven't done it before. So I've just kind of emailed them and said, this is what I need from you. We need to coordinate on voices and talk about, tone is really the most important. You guys are going to have different pacing, but you guys need to be on the same page with tone. You need to be on the same page with voices. If he's doing a Texas accent and you're doing a Tennessee accent, y'all are going to have a horrible end product. I mean, it's just going to sound weird. So you need to know, especially with accents, but also with tone of the characters, and all of that really does come into play when you're sending, hopefully, you guys are all getting character information from your authors. And if you are, then that really helps bridge the gap between what you're doing with each character and what they're doing with each character. So
it's all your responsibility. You're running the project like normal. What if their personality clashes? What if they start to boss you around? Or what? I mean, in general, I'm just coming up with you guys. I know that we're all adults and professional, and by far this kind of thing happens really rarely. I'm just bringing them up so that we can be prepared for every little thing.
Well, I would say it's not rare.
Really?
At least in my experience, I've come across a lot of partners that were difficult to work with, or that, because you can email them and say, hey, let's exchange voice files, hey, let's do this and that, and they don't do anything. I mean, and then 2 weeks later, they're like, here's the audio, and you're just like, what the hell is happening? Because I thought we were supposed to coordinate. But so sometimes that does happen. And in that case, I mean, there's really nothing you can do. You just have to go by, you know, the author notes and just do your best at that point, because not everybody's going to be fabulous to work with, and you just have to be able to adapt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was one of those things where I thought there would be a really good answer to it, but it's one of those, like
Mhm.
in anything, if you don't get along with your teammate. Okay, so we've got a question. Would you like to ask it, Rebecca, or would you like, okay, Rebecca has a question for you.
Yeah. So, how difficult do I need to seek out a person that's specifically experienced in editing and mastering dual, not duet, but dual narration, or can pretty much any decent engineer do it?
Do you do your own editing as of now and mastering?
I am capable of it. I do it sometimes, and I outsource sometimes.
Do you understand the, do you use RX, or what do you use for mastering? Yeah.
Use RX and Studio One.
Oh yeah, okay. So you understand what the different levels in RX, the different processes in RX do, and how to change levels and stuff, then you can do it
Okay.
yourself. And so I mean, I'm not gonna, yeah, you can do it. I do editing myself. I do all the mastering for Pink Flamingo. Every single narrator, I have like 48 or something like that in my RX stacks. I have a stack for every narrator. So as long as you have a good knowledge of what you're doing, you can certainly do it. You just have to make sure. So editing duet is a totally other thing, but editing dual, you just have to make sure that your levels are the same as far as loudness. And that takes a little bit of kind of messing around with each one. But once you kind of get it down for that narrator, there's not really a ton you have to do unless they switch their setup, but they shouldn't be doing that during the book. So most likely they won't.
Cool.
So have you gone on and worked so well? I mean, on the other side of the coin, have you worked so well with someone that you've gone on and done more books with them because you enjoyed working with them and you guys have made money together?
Yes. Me and Cale Williams do a lot of work together. Um, well, many. Wynn Ross, Tom Taylorson. There's a lot that I've worked with multiple times, because there are a lot of good people out there to work with. And they understand what's needed, and they will work with you, and they are fabulous to work with. So don't take my horror stories as like this is the way it is, because
No, I think we should
chances
do
are it
it
won't
though. I
be.
think we should throw out the horror stories for every subject in question that comes up, and then throw out the good side as well, because
Yeah.
we all know every single thing there's going to be what's the worst case scenario, and then a lot of times, it's like
Yeah.
a guilt-free affair.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah. And if you find somebody that's really great to work with, you know, you can work with them all the time. And then it's easier, especially if you edit and master your own stuff, then you kind of know what you need to do for their files. And yeah. I mean, I know I'm supposed to be saying that you should send it off to an engineer. I'm not going to say that, because I have always edited and mastered my own stuff, and I think it's perfectly fine for you to do that if you know what you're doing.
We're very comfortable in Cup of Joy with shades of Cup of Joe with shades of gray,
Okay.
because I don't like everyone has to do things this way kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
They're different scenarios, and I think the more knowledge we have, the better off we are. So before we even get to duet, how does this apply for the one that I got was a publisher book? So I was just, they didn't even kind of mention that it was a dual. There was
Yeah.
like a mistake in communication. So then when I
Right.
found out, it was like, oh my God, oh my God.
Mhm.
So if it's coming from a publisher, how do you know? I mean, obviously you reach out if nobody's reached out to you, but how do you know who should take the lead
Always
kind of
take the
thing?
lead. I mean, you might as well just always take the lead.
I love
And
that.
just, you know what I mean? Because otherwise you're just sitting there waiting for them to reach out to you, and maybe they do and maybe they don't. But as soon as I know with a publisher that this book is going to be dual, I just send that guy an email and say, you know, talk to them about characters or whatever. But yeah, always do that. And maybe you guys both send an email at the same time, and then yay, you guys are both on the ball. But you know, and nobody has to really take the lead in that case as the producer, because the publisher is the producer. So
So
you're
you're
just
just
worried
working
about
together.
recording. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing was he had to keep his voice for the female parts was too high, and I couldn't get my voice that high, which is
Oh, yeah.
probably the opposite of what he was expecting.
Right. Yeah.
So duets are terrifying, terrifying.
Yeah.
Um,
They
is
can
it
be.
just exactly the, I mean, do you have to be hooked up to each other while you're doing the duet? Or I mean, are you on live narrating together? Are you just narrating your parts? How are you doing a duet? How is a duet done?
So I've done it both ways. And also, before I go past this, please make sure that you are reading the entire script, regardless of if it's, you know, dual, duet, or single narration. Just because you don't have to record the male parts doesn't mean you shouldn't know what the heck is going on. Especially because character info comes to light in throughout the whole book, so you could be missing something huge. But anyways, duet. Uh, I'm sorry, I lost the question. What did you say?
Um, Actually, I'm going to go, can I go back to it? Because I've got some people
Yeah.
asking other questions, and I think mine will take a long time. So
Okay.
somebody asked me to ask you, as a new narrator, how do I seek or get access to dual narration projects to audition for? Is there a filter on sites like ACX for dual or duet projects?
There's not. Um, so, but the author will typically say if they want male, like sometimes it'll say male or female, you know, in ACX where it has the gender,
Yeah.
and sometimes it'll say male or female. That's kind of a good indicator that there's both points of view in that book. Otherwise, go out and find them. You can find them on Amazon. There's a lot, and it's not just romance. I mean, there's dual narration and duet narration can all be done in any genre, I would think.
I've heard thrillers. With,
Okay.
and a lot of
I
them
don't do a
have
lot
more
of,
than one. They have like a guy and two women, you
right.
know, different chapters for different ones. So that's what the thrillers do.
Yeah. So that's another thing when you're working with more than one person, especially if it's more than two. Sometimes, like I have an author that likes to have a different voice for each point of view. And some of those points of view are like 40 minutes long, 30 minutes long, 20 minutes long. And so just remember that if you come across that, you want to pay your narrator for for an hour. That's like the hour minimum. So just remember that when you're talking to your author about pricing.
So you're saying it's a minimum of an hour, so they know going in, I'm going to be paid one finished hour for it.
Yep.
And you're figuring
And
it
that
out
way your
according to your
author
rate.
knows. Yeah. And your author knows that just because this narrator had 20 minutes of audio, I'm still paying them for an hour. So
Well, that's good. I like that. So there's another question. Well, it's not really a question, but just to confirm, Ian, did you want to ask this one, or did you want me to read it out
Yeah,
loud?
no, I can ask it. I can ask it.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Hello, hello, hi, hi, Sarah. Yeah, so I have already done a few books for Sarah, so hopefully I'm kind of right in this assumption. But I always think that in reference to the point Daniela was making, that if you know, the male character maybe is playing male, might be playing the particular female in a particular style of voice, but I was just sort of assuming that the listener would also make quite a lot of allowances in dual, because you know, so my dual narrator is a female American and I'm a male British guy, and that although she does a great Brit accent, there's also, you know, the slippage in the characters as well. Some of the characters are slightly American, so there's quite a lot of scope for interpretation, and I just assume that a listener will kind of go, well, yeah, that's that narrator's interpretation, or that character's interpretation of that character, which in a way is quite interesting, isn't it? That one character interprets a particular person in one way and another character interprets them in another way.
But it goes back to us disappearing as narrators. If we're doing our job properly, we're out of the story and the characters come alive, so it's believable. They believe. Luckily, this guy was British, and he did the entire book with an American accent.
Okay.
Amazing American accent.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really complain about a high voice, but and he did lower it.
Well, and that's the thing, even if it is a high voice and you don't do a high voice for that character, like Ian said, the listener gives allowances for it. Then they're not, I mean, unless they're assholes, which they have been. I've had people slam me for my guy voice, and I'm like, I'm not a dude. What do you want from me? But, you know, I mean, but for the most part, they're lenient about, you know, about voices, because you can't sound exactly the same. So.
Cool.
I'm on mute for a second, guys, because we've got a helicopter situation. So I'm going to let you guys kind of chat to.
I think it's interesting, that thing though, isn't it, that the perception, because also they're always first person narrative. So there's, again, it's a perception idea, isn't it? What are you playing here? And like, I guess a kind of a classic sort of alpha male in a romance situation might see I don't know, somebody, I'm thinking about one character, somebody that works in this hotel. He might see them as really subordinate and kind of look down at them, and therefore his interpretation of that character might be somebody that's quite whiny.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you ever find that you have, because that can get quite complicated, but do you ever find that people, that kind of brings it alive, or can that get too confusing for the listeners sometimes?
It depends on the level. I think it really does depend on the level, the amount of dialogue that character has. If they're a large part of the story, you really want to kind of, you know, communicate with your narrator and say, this is how I see this person, how do you see this person, and try to come to something a little bit closer. But if it's just a hotel worker that you encounter for, you know, a couple of drinks, then it's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you don't, that's the thing. You don't have to say, oh, this human that's, you know, hit the main character and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to go over every single character, mostly just the main ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the nice thing about it. And also it being first person, I think most of the time that's just, yeah, gives you that freedom a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. I was going to ask you, while I've got you, and Danielle's muted, so she can't really, got a helicopter in her garden. I was wondering, in terms of duet, because I've seen quite a few people on Discord now doing their duets. Have I got that right? Duet with multi-character kind of casting, doing it together live. Is that what happens mostly now? People kind of link up, or is it still actually you send your sound files and somebody puts those together at the end?
It happens both ways. I've done it both ways. For PFP, we usually do by Zoom. We have the narrators go on Zoom and they record together. It just helps with tone. You know, because when you're in the scene, and then all of a sudden the other character says this, they need to know how you're feeling so that they can, you know, react the right way.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I've also done where I couldn't get, me and this guy could not get our schedules to align, so we just recorded separately, and it turned out great as well. So yeah, like
Okay.
both ways.
Yeah. Okay.
We've
Thank
got
you.
some questions. Oh, sorry. We've got some questions. Robin, Sarah did kind of go over the answer to that question earlier in the call, but we're recording this and it's going to go up on the playlist. So maybe just if you go back, so that we don't take Sarah's time and then do the whole thing again. But Robin was asking about how narrators find a partner to narrate with and everything. But then I do have two questions somebody would like me to ask you. You talked about matching partners for dual narration. This is from Rebecca. Does Pink Flamingo help match male and female narrators, or is it completely up to the author? Obviously, Sarah has the experience to provide this assistance. If an author likes a pair of narrators Pink Flamingo doesn't think match well, how do you handle that?
We haven't really come across that situation yet. Authors pretty well know their characters, so when they're listening to the auditions, and to be fair, there's a lot of times when we'll get 40 auditions for something, and I'll narrow it down to the best 5, and then I'll send those to the author. I only do that if they request that, but if they don't want to go through 40 auditions. But so yeah, we do a lot of pairing of narrators, but we also do allow the author to make that decision. None of our narrators are bad, so it's not a situation where I feel like this narrator is not going to do what they're supposed to do, or it's going to turn out like crap, or I mean, it's just, I feel good about our narrators, so I don't know. I haven't come across a situation where I haven't felt like they've paired well.
So you've got a good pool of narrators that know their stuff, so you kind of feel good that whatever the author chooses, it'll come out
Yeah, for
well
the
in the
most part.
wash.
For the most part, yeah. There's certain situations, but for the most part.
And how much, I wonder, this is just me being curious, but as a listener, because I don't really listen to dual narration, because I like thrillers and I prefer the one narrator, but for a reader, for a listener, how much does chemistry count? Do you know what I mean? You could have two good narrators, like if in theater and film, if they just don't mix, they just don't mix. Does that even matter in audiobooks?
I think it matters to an extent. I do think you have to have two narrators that can perform the piece well, and that's a hard question to answer. But I don't think it matters as much as it does in theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think as long as your narrators are aware of the piece and they understand the intent that the author is trying to portray, then hopefully they'll be able to, bring that across to the listener. But yeah.
And what about the teams? Those teams, some of them are husband and wife, but they corner the market because they're like a team and they work together. And I mean, do they have a big advantage over separate narrators that they apply together for the audition, don't they? They each do half of the audition together.
Yeah.
And
I think that there's a lot of technology nowadays that allows for us to put two different narrators together, whereas before a lot of duets were done by husband and wife teams or they were done in studio. But there really wasn't a way for me from Illinois to do a duet or even a dual with somebody who was from California, say, or, you know, but there's so many different ways for us to connect now where we can be on the same page together. So I don't think that they necessarily, I do think they have a bit of an advantage because they're right there together, but I just think that there's so many ways for us to make audio
So we've
sound
moved
right
past
and
it.
mix it all together where it sounds just
Do you
like you're
think
in it.
do you think they're taking over this, I was going to say straight narration, but that's probably not the politically correct. Do you think that dual narration in romance is most of the market at this point? It seems like it's more than just single narration, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's because the authors, oh God, so many of them write from both points of view. So
Hmm.
it's really tough, and I've done quite a few, but it's really tough for a female to go in and do a first person male point of view. I mean, imagine for 4 hours recording with your like this or however you're going to do your guy voice, like super low. My voice is super scratchy right now, so that sounded like shit, but low, super low in a low register, you're doing that for 4 hours. I mean, I couldn't imagine, you know. So it's just best, always best, especially if you come across a book that has dual points of view, to say, we need to hire this out. And if you're doing royalty share, you can split that cost with your author for the male narrator or for the female narrator, or you can just have them do it. But a lot of times I'll split it with my author because we're sharing royalties. So why wouldn't you?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think romance and royalty is a whole different thing than a lot of the other genres because romance is so hot right now, isn't it? And it's,
Some of them.
yeah. I mean, but they have
I've
an
not.
audience. Like they have a hardcore audience. I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
piss off any of
Yeah.
those romance listeners because they
Yeah.
love their stuff and they know what they love and they're
Yeah, they do.
hardcore, which is great. I mean, that's what keeps the audiobook industry alive.
I don't think romance is the highest selling,
I know that
though.
surprises me. What was the highest selling? I can't remember.
What was it? I can't remember either. Sci-fi, I feel like.
Or fantasy. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
sci-fi fantasy? But in our world, doesn't it feel like it's romance?
Yeah.
Like, but maybe because they're very savvy, the romance narrators that I know, I mean, they're not just romance narrators. I don't think any narrator is just one, but I've noticed they're among all the people I know, they're incredibly savvy now with the marketing and the social media. The sci-fi though, and they're getting it with the Discord and they're
Yeah, they
catching
are.
up fast.
Yes, yeah. They're kicking ass.
Sci-fi thrillers, but it's the thrillers and the horrors because I know Cold Contacting looking for thrillers. They're
Mhm.
the ones that always seem already picked up by the publishers. They're the okay, so we have a question. um okay, would you like to ask it? Do you want me to, Rebecca?
Yeah, so you said something about if it's royalty share, uh, is there still no way to split royalties? Are you just talking about a buyout
Yeah,
on
but
like ACX?
it's never a good idea to split royalties,
Yeah.
because it's just not worth it. But yeah, so just a buyout. If you can talk your author into splitting the cost of the male narrator, a lot of times, what is it going to be, like 3 or 4 hours, and you're paying them between 150 to 250 for raw audio. So, you know, per finished hour, but you know, it's really not that much when you think about it. So if you can split the cost with your author, or sometimes my author doesn't want, I've had authors who I've asked about this and they've said, nope, I'm not going to pay it. And I just said, fine, I will, because I'm not going to do a guy voice for 4 hours. So I just pay out the male narrator. That's a whole totally different, that's a different thing, I think, because I do that anyways as for my production company. So maybe it's not quite the same for you, but I don't see why it wouldn't be. If you don't want to do the male point of view, you have to pay them somehow. So you might as well split it or just pay them out. Especially because if you're doing a royalty share, you're assuming that book is going to sell well, right? I mean, otherwise why do it? So then it's worth it, I think. You're putting out a little bit of money in up front, especially if you're the one editing and mastering, then you don't have that cost. So that's nice. But it's
Thanks.
kind of like, yeah, kind of like the RS Plus or whatever.
Well, this got a little off topic, and I'm not fast enough typing while I actually listen as well. But Carlotta had a really good point. She was saying that, you don't mind me saying it out loud, do you, Carlotta? But she was saying that she thinks that the romance, especially the narrators, have a more prominent direct connection with the listeners, and they have their own fan bases and followings, more so than in other popular genres where the narrator is less of a clear draw in him or herself. And it's a really good point. And I'm wondering if that's on us, because I've joined a few thriller groups, thriller book groups, and they are avid fans, and I haven't actually interacted at all.
So here's a question though. Do you join your author groups, your authors fan groups, and stuff like that? Because I do that with each of my authors, and then I post sneak peeks of the audio being done. I'll post, you know, the headliner with the cover and the audio when it's live and stuff. I'll do giveaways in there, even if I'm having to pay. Sometimes I'll wait for the Whisper Sync price and pay to give away 2 to 5 books. But that gives you a connection with the listeners. It allows you to like talk to them and communicate with them and have them communicate with you. And that's, I think, how I built, that's a whole different topic, but I think that's how I built my business from the beginning, was because I was very involved with the listeners. And so I had listeners, you know, do a lot of recommendations of me to authors, and it just kind of went from there. So I always
That's a good topic. I mean, it's a little off topic, but it's something we could all hear. Because if I'm honest, I do trailers, I do audiobook trailers, I do including headliners. I go over and above for my writers, but I don't actually ever interact with their listeners, ever.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm on their groups, but I don't interact. I've never even thought about it.
If you're just posting that stuff on your page or and you know, Instagram or whatever, I mean, like, you're not really reaching the people that you want to reach, which is the listeners, because if
And
the
which is
listeners
selling
love
their book
you,
for them.
yeah,
It's a very good point. That's
yeah,
I've got lots of work I could do. Yeah, and my writers are great. I mean, to be fair, they market, they do post the trailers and the audiobooks and everything, but I think it's the same. I don't listen to my own review. I don't read my own reviews. Somebody else reads them to check on them for me periodically. So I guess you're right. How can you expect that much of a following if you're not? Rebecca Lee. What do you mean, Rebecca Lee, you can't figure out how to connect with your public Facebook page?
So I have my personal Facebook page under, you know, my social media name, and then I have 2 different pseudonyms for narrating, and I have pages for both of those. And like, I know I can join some groups with them, but it's like I have the hardest time with Facebook trying to use the personal or the professional pages for interacting and things. Like sometimes
but that's the thing, like when you're my suggestion is always to get another personal Facebook, like not a page, but like a I don't even know what it's called.
Profile.
However, profile.
Personal profile.
And and use that to join your author groups and post. Well, I think you can actually post in groups now and join groups as a page. So that
I think it depends on the group, and also sometimes, and it's, I don't know, Facebook just doesn't work sometimes. It'll say error and things. I don't know. It's really tough.
And they do penalize you for posting the same thing on your personal page that you post on your page. You're penalized. They lower the audience that sees it.
I didn't know that.
The algorithms, yeah. So basically, another profile create an actual person, make them as three-dimensional as you possibly can. And then a trick that I learned, I have to give credit where credit's due. I learned this from Rachel Naylor over here in the London Voiceover Network, and it's brilliant. I'm going to regret like telling the entire world though. If you want, because people only see people that they've interacted with recently. So if you want someone to see a specific post that you're putting out, for instance, if I wanted someone high profile or something that I wanted to get their attention, I knew they were my Facebook friend, but there's no reason they even know they're my Facebook friend. You know, we all have those friends. Like, we love them, but they probably wouldn't know us if they passed us in the street. Before I post the thing, I go to their page and I look at a few of their pictures. Then I post the thing. Then I go back to their page and look at a few of their pictures. And that tricks the Facebook algorithm into thinking that you guys are good buddies and causes them 9 out of 10 times to see that post. It'll appear on the newsfeed. Yeah, I mean, saying that, they could go and then say hide all posts from Rebecca Lee for 30 days. Right. You know what I mean? They don't have to look at it, but it helps you reach an audience. You have to be aware of the algorithms in Facebook. And that's the thing with the Facebook pages. They're set up purposefully to stop too much personal interaction because they're supposed to be business-based pages. So, but they've also got that rule that they came up with like a year or so ago, which I don't know how much they enforce it, but you're not supposed to sell a single thing or advertise anything for your business on your personal page. So if you do open your avatar or your pseudonym's personal page and give her a life and a boyfriend and, you know, flowers on every engagement and, you know, everything like that, but, you know, set up a great life, have her on the beach doing yoga handstands or whatever your pseudonym. I mean, I do thrillers, so that's probably not what my pseudonym would be doing. But if you do that, just be aware that anything you put on there, make sure you've backed it up and you've got that you own it, because it could be taken down at any minute if you're posting things in advertising.
Yeah.
You could lose the page. And we could all lose the page because we're all kind of guilty of that. Every writer I know is kind of guilty of that. Not me, in case anybody sees this YouTube video. I've never done it once. but you know what I mean? The algorithms are there for a reason. But it would be kind of fun. Create a whole second life. Now I'm curious about Sarah's other Facebook.
I don't have another one. Every dirty, raunchy book is under my for real name, which is Sarah Puckett.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a few under a pseudonym, but I don't spend much time with her. I don't trust her much. So I've got another question. Yeah, so thank you, Ellen. Yes, you can, but it's clunky. It is, I agree. And it's on purpose, clunky, because they don't really want you to use it that way. Setting up another profile from Rebecca again. I'm going to go ahead and read it because you asked me to read the first one, but let me know if you wanted to talk. Setting up another profile for your pseudonym linked to your real name is easy, and switching back and forth is a breeze. I have joined some groups with both names. Yeah, and Rebecca is one. Actually, I was thinking of you. I couldn't, because Rebecca's pseudonym is so like kind of a cool, strong pseudonym that I forgot she wasn't like a real person. You forget that that's their pseudonym. They have so much like of a personality and a gorgeous picture and a strong brand that that's what I would do if I was interested in continuing using a pseudonym. So I totally hijacked the dual duet thing. I'm so sorry, Sarah.
No, you're fine.
So
I think, does anybody else have any other questions about
negotiating money for a dual duet, is it the same rates just divided in half, or is it, if it's a duet, is it, especially if it's a duet and you have to be doing the editing, isn't it like a little bit more because this is going to be a thankless job?
Well, yeah. So for dual, I wouldn't suggest, I don't, dual is just the same as straight record. unless you want to ask for a little bit more, to be fair, you are prepping the entire script. So to have to prep the entire thing but only get paid for half of it sucks. But so yeah, you could ask for a little bit more for dual. Duet, I think, is where it really can get very expensive. So depending on how you do it, if you record, it's all okay. Well, if you, I'm trying to decide, there's a specific way that is union standard, right? Which is that you get paid for the total runtime, each narrator. So if you're charging $250 per finished hour and the title is 8 hours long, there's 2 of you narrating for duet, you get paid for 8 hours. Your other narrator gets paid for 8 hours. So it's basically twice as much money. So that's the standard way to charge for duet. And that's how I would absolutely charge if you're doing it via Zoom, because you're sitting there with your co-narrator narrating and sitting there for the full 8 hours, whether you're recording or not. And so, yeah, for that, I would definitely charge that. I don't do that if I don't do it via Zoom, which I've done quite a few now, where I think 7 duets where we didn't record together on Zoom. And in that case, we didn't charge that. We just charged for our finish hours, and then also for the amount of dialogue. So it gets kind of tricky. I always recorded like per chapter. So chapter 1 dialogue, I would record. Chapter 3 dialogue, if it's like every other chapter is the male point of view.
Wow.
And then I would add that up and charge that. So it's not quite as expensive that way.
Yeah.
But I also charged a little bit extra than I normally do because I was the one editing and mastering that duet. So
Yeah.
But standard is that you charge for the total runtime for both of you, and you can just go with that, and you don't have to make concessions and try to get your author the best price. You can just do it that way.
What's your favorite? Dual, duet, or straight?
Probably dual, for the sake of editing, but I do really enjoy duet. I think that it's super fun, and it's nice not to have to do any guy voices. I do enjoy that.
So did you do a book with Ian? Did I hear right? Did you do a book with Ian?
No, he's
No.
Pink Flamingo.
Oh, he did a book. Yeah, see, because that accent. It was a pity that the guy that did my book couldn't use his English accent, but it was in Michigan. I almost had a heart attack. You saw that I almost had a heart attack when I found out, A, you've been signed up to dual narration.
Yeah.
B, he has an English accent. So so that's
I'm doing another one here pretty soon where the main character is from Brooklyn, and I'm like, I can't do that accent. So I have to talk to the male narrator and be like, no, you can't do that accent. We're just gonna have to pretend like he did not grow up there.
Yeah, that's always the conundrum with accents, especially when you're not. I'm doing one right now with an Australian male lead, and I'm trying to sound like Crocodile Dundee, and I have signed up for an intensive accent class starting next week.
Yeah.
Meantime,
right.
You're kind of thinking, should I just have skipped it entirely? It's hard to be romantic also when you're trying to like fake an accent. But for the record,
is he that kind of Australian? Is he the kind of Crocodile Dundee?
He's from Bondi Beach.
Oh, Bondi. Okay, Bondi Beach.
Bondi. Well, I think I did say Bondi in the script. I did. I looked it up.
It might be like that because you could watch, because there's there's Bush Tucker Man. Have you ever watched Bush Tucker Man? It's a documentary kind of
Oh,
thing.
is it? Oh, I'm too
Well,
far in now. You know, when you
okay.
get so far in that you're just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah,
Like,
we go with what you've done. Yeah.
any accent but Australian. I think we all have our nemesis, our
Yeah,
accents.
yeah.
But so I'm so going to go and buy one of Sarah's dual narrations now and check out
Duet?
Ian's. And I don't listen to a lot,
Oh.
so maybe if I listened to more, I would become more of a. I want to be prepared because I have noticed it increases. That I've noticed I'm hearing about it more, like Discord. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So I need to make friends with it.
And it is kind of a little bit strange in the beginning, but once you start doing it, it's really not much different than doing a single narration, other than you're working with a co-narrator and just making sure you guys are both on the same page. It doesn't have to be super hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know, just talk to each other, share voice files of the characters, and then do your thing. You know, you don't have to
I'm just
like.
gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. And maybe I'm the only one here where the thought hasn't entered my mind. My thing with the duel is, I'm not reading my reviews, by the way, but people are going to be reviewing both of you. The thought of them going, oh my God, the guy was dishy, but that woman's voice. You know what I mean? They're reviewing both of you. So you feel like you've let them down or screwed up their book if you get a bad review. Whereas if I don't, obviously I would hope I get all wonderful reviews, but if I didn't, it's just on me. I'm not like responsible for them.
I think the main, like I've had a book that the male narrator was just wrong for. And I didn't choose him. It was a publisher book. But so that one got a lot of reviews about the male narrator. But I will tell you, one of the most frustrating things about dual narration and duet narration is that there is, because I do read my reviews, and almost every single review is, oh my God, the guy was so, I loved the male narrator. He was so sexy. Not a single damn thing about the female narrator. And it's all 5 stars across the board, but the females love the males. And it's like, Jesus Christ, am I just sitting here like, did I even work on this freaking title?
Well,
But
I mean, there's a
they just
man
love
with a
the males.
naked chest on the cover.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're definitely
So
not going to
that's
go in
something
there
you have to get
singing
used
your
to.
praise.
It's like, all right, yeah, he did have a sexy voice. You're right.
You definitely, yeah. And those ones you might have to be the support cat.
Yes, yeah.
We've had
So
some
that's
comments. Sorry to cut you off. The challenge with duet. So this is from Alan. The challenge with duet was having someone listen real time. Oh,
Alan
good
just
point.
did, yeah. Alan just did one for us, yeah, for PFP.
Is Alan there? Do you want to talk, Alan, or I can't see everyone. He's probably hiding from that one.
What did he say?
No, it was a lot of fun. It was,
Was
but
it?
yeah, it was having someone there, because we did Zoom wasn't working for us, so we did over the phone. But for me, it was my first time doing anything quite that explicit, and to do it with someone who is listening in real time. And everything's start and stop, obviously, right? Because I screwed up that line. Let me do it again. And so you can see that. Are you in your back of your mind, you sense that they're just getting bored while you're talking about just the most graphic things. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that is a guilt-free affair right there.
Exactly. Yeah, my friends made a lot of fun for me about that. But and the other thing I noticed though is doing with duet and dual, working with another narrator is such a cool experience, because for me, I feel like every one of them has made me better, because every person brings something different to it.
Yeah. And it totally can, especially if you have a very close communication with your co-narrator. Like I said, there's some that you're not going to get that with, but there's some that you will, and that can just really build this amazing relationship where you guys can work together on multiple things, and it is a lot of fun to work.
And I mean,
with a
in
great
acting,
co-narrator.
you've got the kiss scenes, you've got the There are a lot of scenes in acting where you barely know the guy and like suddenly you have to act like you're like engaged and madly in love. I love
Yeah.
that. That's
But
interesting.
you don't have to do that with a duel. I mean, you're not going to record together or even hear each other's parts, but yeah, I
A
can
duet.
imagine. Yeah, duet can get dicey. Like
I
you're
think
Speaking
that
of
saying.
was
a
the
duel,
first time on Discord it got dicey when I was on Discord and I came up against a scene like that and I hadn't I
Yeah.
thought I'd already finished all those scenes. I'd forgotten about this one. And I was suddenly like, okay, well that's it for the day, guys.
Yeah.
You
but
suddenly
even
get
with
shy.
duels, you kind of get a bit of a window into how other people prepare and how they do their voice files, and you get a window into, because what we do is so private most of the time. So it's kind of
Yep.
neat to have that window into someone else's process.
Yeah. Yeah, and also prepping. That's something to go over really quick for dual and duet. For dual, you don't have to really prep any differently, but like at least for me, when I do duets, I always go through and highlight every piece of dialogue that's mine in his points of view and his and my points of view. That way, when we're going, this is especially important if you're working independently and not together. That way, when he's going through, he's not having to read the whole damn POV of mine. He can just jump to the highlighted dialogue, read the few sentences before,
Oh, that's
then,
good.
you do that dialogue and kind of, I mean, he'll have to read a little bit because you have to understand, what tone you're supposed to be using, but yeah.
And then and Mike had a good point. Mike, I don't see you there. Coordinating characters' names and how they're pronounced as well. Have you
I
ever
see
had
that.
that where somebody's gotten it mixed up and one person's pronounced something one way and another way?
Oh yeah. Me
Yeah.
and Mike just had that just the other
Oh,
day.
did you?
Yeah, Mike's one of those narrators I work with a lot. He's a good one. So all you females who want a dual partner.
Is that Mike Charters?
Oh, I'm talking about Mike Johnson.
I don't know. Which Mike is this?
I think my mic's on. Am I on?
Yep,
Oh,
you're on
hi. So
now.
this is a different Mike. Hi, Mike. So you guys pronounced something differently. Did you have to go redo it, one of you?
We did. Well, we're working on book 2 of a mafia romance, so a lot of Italian names being thrown around there, and I think I screwed it up and had to go back and change a bunch. But yeah,
But we've all got the name thing. Dual, duet, or normal. We've all done the name thing.
Yeah.
It gets the best of them. It does. So guys, so highly recommended by Sarah, Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
Male, duo, and do you guys do duet as well?
We haven't
we
done
haven't.
duet yet,
Oh,
but we've done dual. We've worked on we even had like songs in our audio, like guitar and
Oh,
singing.
how romantic.
Well,
I'm thinking from the listener's point of view.
yes, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I've done so many romances where I'm both the male and the female. Maybe it would be good to stop just telling myself how much I love myself, like for 8 hours. So I've got Linda saying, have you ever done a duet where you record your part and send him the files to insert within the chapter? So
Yeah.
I guess he's doing the editing. I know Linda did that at
Oh,
one point.
I've not done that. I always do the editing because I don't trust that. So
With duets, who says the he said, she said? Susan wants to know.
the point of view. So yeah, if it's your point of view, you would say the he said after whatever he said.
So
Yep.
I think this is brilliant. I think we are all now professional dual and duet audiobook narrators.
Yay!
I think this is wonderful. You guys, if anybody has any questions, and if you are in the Cup of Joe, I'm going to put my normal thank you so much, Sarah, for taking the time to join us tonight. And then you can post the questions below. Do you mind just having
Yeah,
a
no,
checking them?
absolutely. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, this has been fabulous because it's one of those subjects where I think, and I can speak for myself, but I bet other people, if you haven't done a lot of it and you don't know the ins and outs, it can be a little bit intimidating. And then you can
Yeah.
just be like, well, I'm really, really busy. I'll do it some other time. And, yeah, Linda, very good point. We're all professional schizophrenics now. I think it's a special audience anyway by virtue of
And
the job.
also, as far as editing, just really quick, because I talked a lot about editing it yourself, but you don't have to do that. You can send it off. Dual is not going to cost you any more. Duet will, so make sure that you talk with your engineer and find out how much they are going to charge for that, and count that into your price that you give the author. But Dual shouldn't cost more. So
It sounds like communication, basically. No matter how many players are on the board,
Yep.
everyone's communicating, because that's where things can fall down.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I think it's wonderful. I might
Good.
do more of them.
You should.
Yes.
You
I mean, that's how I ended up doing the one I did, because the publisher put me on it. But to be honest, if it had been an audition, I wouldn't have auditioned.
Really?
Yeah, I would never have auditioned.
Well, don't not audition. Just hit me up and I'll help you walk through it.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to help us out, Sarah, and to talk to us. And thank you, everyone.
I hope it was helpful.
It was wonderful. It was it was actually very good. And I was feeling I was like, oh, I'm not really a dual person. And I learned a lot. So
Okay,
you've got a convert. And everyone says thank you. And thank you all for joining. It's been fabulous seeing you. Questions against the comment lines, and we will post this on the playlist. And it'll be fabulous. So when you get booked for your next job, you can check out any questions you forgot to ask.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.